Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Future Assured Half Hour. Everybody has been talking about a particular topic. It's a topic that has been on most people's lips. We have on the program today someone who will enlighten us on the topic. And I guess you're wondering what the topic is and who our guest is. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
In a country of 94.2 million women, we struggle through life as a girl child. We are condemned from birth for being female. We are abused right from birth with female genital mutilation. Growing, we struggle and are told we are only good at taking care of the home and that our male siblings are the ones who deserve to go to school. As we grow, we are sent out to work far away from our families. There, we are abused by the people we work for. If we don't marry, we are trafficked. If we marry, we are victims of domestic violence. Our husbands forcefully take our salaries. What does it take to give us a voice, to give us an education, to give us a future? Powerful people in a powerful world. We are only girls, but with a strong voice we say, leave our daughters alone.
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 Leave our daughters alone. Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
About gender-based violence. And with us on the program, we have the chairperson of the International Federation of Women Lawyers, Abuja branch, Mrs. Rachel Adejo Andrew. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Could you tell us a bit about yourself?
Oh, well, like you said, my name is Rachel Adejo Andrew. I'm the chairperson of the International Federation of Women Lawyers, FIDA Nigeria, Abuja branch. And basically what we do in FIDA is a non-governmental organization. It's not for profits, an association of women who have been admitted to the practice of law in Nigeria. FIDA Nigeria is an affiliate of FIDA International. We're everywhere in all the countries of the world, and in Nigeria we're in 33 states, including FCT, Abuja. We're not in Zamfara yet, we're not in Sokoto, and one other state, but we are basically everywhere, so our presence is felt everywhere. And what we do, our mandate is to protect, preserve the rights and the interests of indigent women and children. When there are legal issues that deal with women and children, we take them on pro bono basis. That's basically what we do in FIDA. On pro bono basis, it means free of charge. But the emphasis is on indigent women. So we only encourage women who ordinarily do not have money to hire the services of a lawyer. If you're working and you can afford the services of a lawyer, we encourage you to go to a lawyer. But for women who are really indigent, who do not have the means to take on a lawyer, we take up their cases. And for children, I mean, whether you're from a parents who are wealthy or not, we take on cases that have to do with children. But for women, it has to be indigent women. That's what we do in FIDA.
Now, what basically is gender-based violence?
Gender-based violence is any form of act or violence that is perpetrated on an individual on the basis of his or her gender. Ordinarily, you will see that there is gender. Gender could be man, it could be woman. But a lot of times when people talk about gender-based violence, it is narrowed down to women and girls. It is narrowed down to women and girls. And gender-based violence is multidimensional because it has human rights violations. It also have health implications, and then it also have the larger society. You know, it also have implications on the larger society. Gender-based violence, it's human rights issue. And then a lot of times it is discriminatory in nature. It is enshrined in our culture, in our social-cultural nature. That is what gender-based violence is.
Can you give us some examples?
Well, examples of gender-based violence, there are so many gender-based violence. We have domestic violence against the woman, the girl, child. We also have gender-based violence of rape. Rape is the form of gender-based violence. We have another gender-based violence. We have stalking, for instance. If you stalk a person, it's a gender-based violence. Then we have forced marriage. Forced marriage is a gender-based violence because a lot of times the people who are forced into early marriages are girls. You don't have cases of boys being forced to marry early. So forced marriage is another form of gender-based violence. We have forced dependence. Like you tell your wife, for instance, you tell a woman, don't work. I don't want you to go to work. I want you to stay at home and all of that. And the woman is not happy with that. That's another form of gender-based violence. So this and many more are examples of gender-based violence. They are violence that are perpetrated on you, on a woman, because she's a woman.
Are they the same as gender-based crimes?
Yes, gender-based crimes, they draw from gender-based violence. For instance, if you look into our laws, maybe the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, for instance, you will see that these acts are already criminalized. So where you have someone stalking, ordinarily, you would think that stalking is not anything serious. But where you have someone stalking another, the VAP Act, for instance, has criminalized it. So it is a crime if you stalk someone, or it is a crime if you mutilate the genitals of your girl child, it is a crime. If you force someone into marriage, it is already criminalized. So gender crimes are derived from those gender-based violence. So it is not just that you're perpetrating the violence and then you can go scot-free. Even though, like I said earlier on, they are really, really enshrined in our culture. But it is time for us, we need to move away from culture. We need to move away from certain things that our culture permits. For instance, take the issue of harmful traditional practices against a widow. You say because someone is a widow, first of all, you accuse her that she killed her husband. As if that is enough, you say, okay, for her to prove her innocence, let her lie down with the corpse of her husband. And then you take it to another ridiculous level by saying you're going to bath the corpse of the husband, you're going to wash the cups, and she's going to drink. All these, ordinarily, our culture, they are coming from culture. Like I said, you remember I said that they are enshrined, gender-based violence are enshrined in our culture. So all of these are coming from our culture. But there is a law which criminalizes all of this. So anybody who does any of this will be caught under the law. And one interesting thing about this law is that it's not until you carry out the act. If as much as you incite someone else to carry out the act, or you abet, or you even counsel someone else to carry out the act without you does not necessarily mean that you have to perpetrate the act or carry out the act. So long as you incite, you cancel, or you abet, you are liable.
So could you enlighten us more on this particular act? I think it's Violence Against Persons Act.
Yes, Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. It's an act which was promulgated in 2015, and it is an act that was promulgated. You know, Nigeria is a signatory to a lot of international conventions. So this act is premised on Convention on Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, which we call CEDAW. Now, this act is designed to eliminate all forms of violence against all persons, not necessarily women and children now, against all persons, whether men, whether women, whether children, whether girls, whether boys. So it is intended to eliminate all forms of violence, both in private and in public life. And this act talks about physical violence, it talks about emotional violence, it talks about economic violence, and it talks about psychological violence. So all forms of violence are covered under this particular act. But the interesting thing about this act that, you remember I said that it is based on the fact that Nigeria is a signatory to CEDAW, to the Convention of CEDAW. Now, this act has to be domesticated in the different states of the Federation, although it is applicable in Abuja. And as at now, only 9 states have domesticated this act, which means that I think 9 out of 36, that would be like 25%, which means that we still have a lot of work to do in terms of domestication of the VAB acts in Nigeria.
We're going to go on a short break now, and when we come back, we'll continue with this discussion.
In a country of 94.2 million women, we struggle through life as a girl child. We are condemned from birth for being female. We are abused right from birth with female genital mutilation. Growing, we struggle and are told we are only good at taking care of the home and that our male siblings are the ones who deserve to go to school. As we grow, we are sent out to work far away from our families. There, we are abused by the people we work for. If we don't marry, we are trafficked. If we marry, we are victims of domestic violence. Our husbands forcefully take our salaries. What does it take to give us a voice, to give us an education, to give us a future? Powerful people in a powerful world. We are only girls, but with a strong voice we say, leave our daughters alone.
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 Leave our daughters alone. Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
welcome back. And we're still talking to Mrs. Rachel Adejo Andrew, the chairperson of FIDA Abuja branch. Now, what exactly is gender identity?
Okay. Gender identity is not biological. According to WHO, the World Health Organization, gender would refer to socially constructed roles, activities, behaviors, and attributes that a particular society would consider appropriate.
Example.
To man or woman. For instance, I give you an example. In the house, you have a boy as a child, you have a girl as a child. In some families, in the morning you tell the boy, go and wash plates. The boy will tell you, that's not a role for me, I'm a boy. I'd rather go and wash the car. So already, it's already tilting towards gender. The boy is already beginning to see that the role of washing of plates or of staying in the kitchen to cook is not his role. He would rather wash a car. He would rather change tires. You understand? So who is defining that role? That role is being defined because it has been accepted over time that anything that has to do with being in the kitchen is for the woman. So that is how you come about gender. It is not defined by whether you are a man or you are a woman. Rather, it is defined by what the society, a particular society, accepts as the role for either a man or a woman. That's what determines or defines gender.
What states have the highest rates of domestic violence?
Well, the statistics are not so very clear as to which states have the highest rates of domestic violence. But one thing that is very clear and that is very certain is that domestic violence is on the increase on a daily basis everywhere. And it is not restricted to any particular status. It doesn't respect status. You won't say that because some people are wealthy, they don't offer domestic violence. It is not true. So it cuts across all classes. Middle class, rich class, lower class, domestic violence cuts across and is on the increase in all the states of the Federation. Everywhere. So the statistics are not so clear as to which state has the highest rate. But one thing that is very, very certain, which Clean Foundation has come out with a report, is the fact that 1 out of 3 women will suffer one form of gender-based violence or domestic violence. 1 out of 3. And that's a huge ratio. 1 out of 3. That's a very huge ratio. It is very high.
But if the ratios are so high, why, and there are laws against it, why are people not reporting? Why are people not being charged for these various acts?
Okay, the reason, I think we should deal with why are people not reporting first, because the reason why people are not being charged is coming from it's coming from the fact that people are not reporting. Now, one of the reasons why don't report gender-based violence or domestic violence is the fear of stigmatization. For instance, by the time you hear that a girl has been raped, no mother, a lot of times, this culture of silence, a lot of mothers will not want to come out and say, my daughter has been raped, because they will think, oh, who will marry my daughter when she grows up? So there's that fear of stigmatization. So because of that, they will rather keep to themselves. Or take a father that defiles his girl children, that defiles his daughters. The mother might want to say she's protecting our marriage, but of course we know that there's